So what's going on, guys? A question that I ask sometimes on the Past the 40 podcast, which is another one that I host. And it's not a question that I made up out of nowhere. It's something that people have talked about forever, really. And that is, if you were going to a deserted island by yourself to live the rest of your life solo, and could bring a 6 CD changer with you, what would you fill those 6 slots with? There aren't many better questions. There aren't many more difficult. There aren't many more difficult questions. But I decided, since I pose it on guests on that podcast, I should take the time to think about it on my own and try to answer it myself. As grueling a process as it may be, and as it was, and as it is, as I even talk about it, I'm still not confident in my answers here. But we are going to give it a shot. Got to give the people what they want, as Jalen Rose always says. So, as I said, this is a struggle because music is, as big a part of my life as anything outside of my household. Always has been. It's the fabric of who I am. Not to get too deep on you or anything, but it's fucking important, and I love it more than almost anything in the world. So to narrow it down to these 6 pieces that I can only hear for the rest of eternity, or the rest of my eternity on this deserted island, gotta take that shit seriously. Can't just throw in anything or whatever the hottest new song is on the charts these days, which I would never know because I only listen to things from 20 to 30 years ago. Anyhow, for those of you who weren't born then, or who are under, 30, the millennial scene and below, CDs are these little circular data holders that music was placed within, and then you took those things, slid them into a player. Usually, I guess you could place them into certain players. But a 6 CD changer was something that you had maybe in your car, in your shelf system, that you put in 6 CDs, 6 of these little data storage circles into this player, and it played the music. Genius, right? Long before the days of Spotify and Pandora and Apple Music and so forth. Those of you around my age know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, for this exercise, I decided that double albums, double CDs, that's, for those of you who don't know what CDs are, that's basically, as it sounds, double the album. 2 CDs in one. And that does come into play here on 2 occasions. If you know me, you probably know exactly what those are already. Anyhow, what am I looking for to fill these 6 slots? They are not the 6 best or my 6 favorite albums of all time. Not that. I'm not just making a list of 1 through 6. What I'm looking for is diversity within reason. I'm not throwing a folk album, a country album, a rap album, a pop album. I'm not doing that. Diversity within my sphere. Listenability, which is something that I think people don't really dig into when they think about their music. It's there are certain albums throughout history that are just easy to listen to more than others, right? There are certain things, and we'll talk about this as we go through these. There are certain albums, certain artists, not even artists, albums specifically, that are just easy to throw in many situations, where other ones you might say, I love this album even more than the other one that's more listenable, but it's just not, there's just more of a specific time or mood that you need to be in to listen to it. So listenability, very important. Mood makers. So for me, and for most people, music is that universal thing that ties people together, and I need albums that I can listen to forever that will get me out of a bad mood. I can listen to if I'm angry. I can listen to if I want to smoke some weed and chill out. I can listen to if I want to have my volleyball friends around on this deserted island and throw a party. Just things that affect and can change my mood and just make me feel something. Something I can put on and it can make me laugh or cry or dance or get mad or think or whatever it is. It has to be albums that affect my mood in some way or take me to a place, take my mind to a place. It could be going backwards. It could be going into the abstract, just like thought. What was this guy thinking here? That, oh, if he's thinking about that, maybe that means this. Things that just get my mind and get my visceral response going. And obviously, flavor. As my man Flex would say in the mid-90s, flavor on top of flavor is what we're looking for here. First, a few honorable mentions. Things that were half-ass considered but never really made the final cut here. Obviously, some of the greatest albums of all time right now is what I'm going to talk about, but they just didn't make the real nitty-gritty for my 6. Liquid Swords by the Jizza, and I'll take these two together, and Iron Man by Ghostface. Obviously, there'll be at least one Wu-Tang album in my 6. These are two of the greatest albums ever made, easily. Liquid Swords, a little dark for eternity, in the best possible way, but just not what I'm looking for forever. And Iron Man, no reason for it not to be here other than I only have 6 spots. Das EFX, Dead Serious. This one might surprise some of you, but Das EFX has a very special place in my heart. They were one of the first groups that I've really got into, early 90s, I want to say 92, Dead Serious came out. And that album, only 10 tracks, and actually the first track, 10 tracks. The first track is not a skit. It's Coming Straight from the Sewer. Or is that the last track? Mike Check is the first track. Anyway, that album, when you talk about mood makers, there is something, a feeling that is unlike any other when I rhyme to Das EFX. Their style, the sickest similes ever. This is like this is like this. Just witty, catchy, and this bum-stiggity style just is something that makes me smile just thinking about it. And every time this album comes on and that like East Coast comes on, track number 6, I just like have to rhyme along, and that puts me in just an incredible mood. So while it didn't crack the 6, it was very much in consideration, which I would assume very few people, not even that I know, very few people in the world would have Das EFX potentially in their forever 60 CD changer, but that album is super special to me. Illmatic. Now, on the other hand, a lot of people probably would have this in their changer. For me, number 1, 9 tracks, and volume matters, right? Quantity matters when it's forever. 9 of the illest tracks ever, one of the greatest albums of all time. I don't need to tell you about Illmatic. If you're listening to this, you know what you're talking about. It's just when compared to the other few albums that I'm going to consider for that sacred spot, it just is just a tiny bit below them. Plus 9 tracks. And plus, like, for me, when people talk about, the greatest solo MCs, Biggie, Jay-Z, Nas, whatever, Nas is third in that clearly for me. I understand if he's first for you, and I will not argue with that for a second, and I would not argue if you tell me Illmatic's the best album of all time and you're taking it to your grave. Great. I will not fight you. For me, didn't make the cut, but honorable, why is that word tough to say? Honorable mention on this list is still pretty impressive. 2001, Dr. Dre. So there was a debate here just within Dre, right? Was it Chronic or Chronic 2001? Both rightfully should have a spot here. I went 2001 for honorable mention. Chronic should be here as well. I like 2001 just slightly better. And when I'm thinking about what to listen to forever, like the party songs on 2001, like Next Episode and Still Dre, like those just upbeat stuff is a little more apparent on 2001, and I think I'll need that if I'm alone on an island forever. However, I didn't make it, that didn't make the cut, so what do I know? But just having Dr. Dre with me, it's a really really tough cut. So like that 2001 and College Dropout, my next honorable mention and last one, were the ones that were really tough to cut. College Dropout just seems like such a wild card in this mix. You know, I said to one of my hip hop friends sometime in the last 2 years, I was like, is College Dropout better than Ready to Die and Illmatic? And like, whoa, I don't want to say that in public, even though I just did to the millions and millions and millions of fans listening right now. I love College Dropout, and you know, it's hard to say positive stuff about Kanye right now, but I fucking love this album and will forever. It's got everything you want, and when you talk about listenability, it ranks super high. Like, it's a top 5 most listenable album for me. Like, I can always throw it on and it makes me happy, always. And there's hard stuff and there's funny stuff. It's just a young Kanye before he got all jaded, before he went a little nuts, and just doing his thing. Musically, it's incredible, and it's just fun, man. The album is just fun, and the idea of having that with me forever, it was a tough one to cut. So 2001 College Dropout, those were really really tough cuts. All right, now let's move on to why you came here today. What 6 albums am I taking with me forever to this deserted island? There are 2 locks that I didn't have to debate at all. Number 1, The Low End Theory by Tribe Called Quest. You may have heard me say this before if you're a loyal listener, but that is the album that I credit fully turning me, converting me, pointing me, directing me down this life path of hip-hop culture. When that came out in 91, you know, I was the years prior, I was like a hair metal guy, and then had a little hip-hop in my life. You know, like I wasn't super in with like the Eric B. and Rakims and Big Daddy Kanes and EPMDs, NWA, Run DMC. I was in, but I wasn't super in. When Low End Theory came out, I went that way, and I have never and will never look back. When you talk about listenability, you throw on Low End Theory in almost any environment, the room's happy. Otherwise, you need a new fucking room. It's got everything. Literally, everything you could possibly want in an album is there. Arguably the best posse cut of all time with Scenario. Check the Rhyme, Bugging Out. Posse cut with Show Business. I mean, on and on and on. It does not stop for a second. Q-Tip solo. Fife solo on Butter. I mean, the funny thing is, there are people who would argue that Midnight Marauders is even better than Low End Theory. I'm not one of those people, and Midnight Marauders is an absolute classic, but for me, Low End Theory just has that, when you talk about mood and feeling and listenability, it's got it all for me. And like I said, I credit it for taking me down the hip-hop path officially. So for that, gets a clear slot in this changer. The second lock, Reasonable Doubt, Jay-Z's solo album. For me, the most listenable album ever made. There was a point in college, like midway through college, let's say, you know, that album came out in 96. So let's say from 98 to like 2005, I had this theory that if you're in a group of people or in a room with a lot of people hanging out and listening to music, or music's on, which was half of my life essentially between those years, that's basically all I did. If I was either sleeping or hanging out with a bunch of people listening to music, there was an 80% chance that the album playing was Reasonable Doubt. Like, and I was very often in charge of music because it was either my surrounding, my home, or whatever it was, or my room in college, or my Hamptons house, or whatever it was. I had a big say in it, and I always liked to play to the crowd. Or not always. I was definitely sometimes like, fuck it, I want to hear Akinyele and putting it in, but hype up me coming up with Akinyele right there, jeez. Very often it was Reasonable Doubt. It's just it's a crowd pleaser, and I think it's the greatest solo album ever made. Um, every time I hear it, like I said, it's never no, I don't want to hear that right now. Like you're never not in the mood to hear Reasonable Doubt. And Jay-Z on that shit, man, amazing. Every time I listen to it, how mature he is for such a young, just up and comer in the game. I think it's his most mature album, considering, which is a shocker considering what he's become as a human, as a man, as a star, as a legend. He's just incredibly wise in that in '96 there. What a classic. So those two take up two slots without even really thinking. Like I didn't debate those two for a second. Third, I needed a female. I needed a singer. I needed some ballads. I needed something to wind down to at the end of a busy day, running on the beach naked. I needed an album to cuddle with on those many lonely nights. And when it comes to female singers in my life over the last 20 years, it starts and stops with Alicia Keys. By far the most played artist in my household with my little boys. Partially because you have to watch the language a little bit for my other stuff, but I love Alicia Keys, man. Lauryn Hill potentially had a spot here. Mary J potentially had a spot here. Love those as well. But for me, it's Alicia. Which album? Really, any of them. But if you're going to make me choose an album here, which I should because this is what we're doing, it's As I Am, Reckless Love, Like You'll Never See Me Again, No One. I mean, it's an incredible album. But if you're gonna give me a little leeway here, I think like on Spotify, I once come across like a Alicia Keys discography type of thing where it's like 70 tracks of all Alicia shit. So I'd rather bring that if you're gonna let me have it. But gotta have something to like chill to and have a female voice with me. I like the presence of females in most situations, in almost all situations really. So I need some voice that can get me through those cold, lonely nights. So now we have 3 spots left. And there are 2 debates here for me. One debate is the Wu-Tang debate. So 1 or 2 of these last 3 spots will be taken up by the Wu-Tang, and that is among Cuban Links, 36 Chambers, and Wu-Tang Forever. I don't know what to do here. Well, you know what? We're going to get back to this. Debate number 2 is the Biggie debate. So Biggie's in. And the question now is, just like it was with Dr. Dre for the honorable mention spot, is it Ready to Die or is it Life After Death? For me, it is Life After Death. And a big reason is volume. Like I said before, quantity over quality. Not even over, because I'm not saying Ready to Die is better. We'll get to that in a second. But when 2 things are close, quantity matters when you're going to listen to this thing forever and ever and ever and nothing else. So if I can get double the Biggie with Life After Death, I'm going to take it. Also, Life After Death has more diversity within the album than Ready to Die was, and that's definitely a product of the fact that it's twice as long, so it has more room, but it just weaves in and out of all of the bigginess, right? You have the thug stuff, you have the party stuff with Hypnotize and I Love the Dough, or Going Back to Cali, Another Bitch, it's just got everything. It's got every type of thing that Biggie does. And compared to Ready to Die, and this is the case with a lot of first versus second albums, right? The first album, and I'm contradicting myself with the Jay-Z comment because Jay-Z is different in this regard, but in most Wu-Tang, Nas even, I'm not saying It Was Written is better than Illmatic, but there's a clear progression. And certainly with Ready to Die and Life After Death, in the first album, there's just an uncut rawness to it, right? It's just first time getting on, I'm going to just attack this mic, and I'm not that polished, and I'm still trying to figure out who I am as an artist, and maybe I don't have the resources to have the best mic or the best studio or the best producers. Then you get some success, you get more reps, you get more resources. And then the second album is a lot more refined. Musically, it just sounds better. And not even that the music is better, it's just like a sound that just feels more fresh. The producers too, they get better. They get older, they get wiser. They've been around the block now. They might have better equipment. The engineers might have better equipment because there's been some success. So like Life After Death just sounds fresher than Ready to Die. And that might not even be a good thing to everyone. Like the rawness of 36 Chambers or Ready to Die certainly is part of the appeal. But when it comes down to it, obviously we're, grasping at straws here. Is that the right term when I'm choosing between two great things? I don't know, but I'm going to do it anyway. So the straw I'm grasping is Life After Death over Ready to Die. So that's four slots. Low End Theory, Reasonable Doubt, Alicia Keys, Life After Death. Now, back to the Wu-Tang debate. I'm going to put my hat... For those of you listening at home, I have a hat on who aren't watching. I'm turning it around backwards for this part. Just feel like it. So, we have 2 spots left and 3 Wu-Tang albums. Now, I will tell you, there is a voice in the back of my head that says 2001 or College Dropout should be another debate, and the winner of that debate should get one of these 2 spots just for that diversity thing. However, the louder voice in my head says, stick on brand, bro. 2 Wu-Tang, 2 of the 6 must be from Shaolin. That is your brand. You had their tattoo on your ankle. Has to be this way. So I'm going to listen to that voice. Though 2001 and College Dropout are so tempting. Cuban Links, 36 Chambers, Forever. Cuban Links is in. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm trying again for like little slices of diversity. And I think you can argue that 36 Chambers and Forever, because they are both Wu-Tang albums, there's some type of similarity between them. All the members, pieces of members in different posse cuts, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4. Whereas Cuban Links is its own shit. Like, you can it might be the best album ever made, start to finish. It just has a sound, a story. It's got imagery. It's just so vivid and clear, and what they're trying to do there is just so apparent, and they just nail it every single moment. Whereas 36 Chambers is this raw group of lunatics and incredible rappers from Staten Island, and Forever is this group of more polished lunatic, amazing rappers from Staten Island. So Cuban Links is in. That takes spot number 5, and now it is back to this, what I just said about Biggie, raw first album versus polished second album. And seriously, if I did this podcast a year ago, even 6 months ago, I would probably say Wu-Tang Forever. But, and might be because this is the 25th anniversary of 36 Chambers, and I've been listening to it a lot this year because of it. Saw the show in New York in January. I'm seeing them again in Coney Island in June. And it's just been on a lot. And while I went with the polish on Biggie, I'm going to go with the rawness with 36 Chambers. And also because there's a lot of polish in Cuban Links as well. It's like deciding between my 2 kids, man. 36 Chambers or Wu-Tang Forever. It's like almost impossible to do, but I'm going with 36 Chambers, and the capper is that Wu-Tang Forever has Black Shampoo by You God at the end of disc 2, and I can't live with that forever if I only have a certain amount of music for the rest of my life. So, to recap, the 6 albums I am bringing with me: Forever, Low End Theory, Tribe Called Quest, Reasonable Doubt, Jay-Z, As I Am, or the discography of Alicia Keys, Life After Death, Only Built for Cuban Links, Raekwon, and 36 Chambers by the mighty, mighty Wu-Tang. I'd love to hear what you think of my six. I'd love to hear what your six would be. Only if you're a real music fan. If you're not, then I don't really care. That's not true. I care to hear what you have to say just so I can mock you forever. That's all I got for you today, guys. Remember, check out my website, man, chrisheller.me. It's looking mighty fine these days. Join my newsletter, The Dot, monthly newsletter, where I just send you a bunch of cool stuff once a month. You can sign up on the site at chrisheller.me. Instagram, chrisheller.me. Twitter, Cheller32. And say hi. Let's hang out. Peace.